Hi, everyone. It's Sister Elizabeth, and you are listening to In the Company of Charity, the podcast of the Daughters of Charity. And I am here with Sister Liz Schoberg, and we are going to delight you today with something we haven't done in a long time, a weather report.
It's been too long, really. The people have demanded it.
They have. They have, absolutely. So, how is the weather there with you, Sister?
So we had some 90s. I mean, we're solidly in summer at this point. And we had a nice little storm come through, and it got down to, I don't know, 70 something. Overnight tonight's going to be like upper 50s, close to 60s. So I'm going to enjoy it before we start hitting 98, 99, 100 in this
Oh, I
beautiful mid-Atlantic area.
can't even think about it. Can't even think about it. I said to Sister Liz before we got started, the one thing I'm missing is sweater weather. I just can't start. I can't stand it much longer. But here in St. Louis, we have. If you look on the app on your phone, like the next 10 days are like 75% rain, and it's going to hit the 90s. So we're just going to be like a steam bath for the next week. It poured this morning, absolutely torrential rain. Thank God it happened after we went to Mass, so I was excited about that.
Mm-hmm.
But I do have a little guilty thing to talk about
Uh-oh.
this time. Little not associated with the weather necessarily, but yesterday I woke up very early in the morning to the cooing of two doves sitting on my windowsill. I have a
Oh,
window that rolls out, so they don't go up; they roll out, so it creates this little ledge, kind of. And two of them came in and started building a nest, and they're
whoa.
big, and they were like right there. I was like,
Ah.
"What is that sound?" So today, or yesterday, I said I'm just going to close it a little bit. Well, this morning wasn't the big guy back trying to get in again. He was pecking at the window, and so I said, you know what? If he gets in, he gets in. I don't know, but I don't think he's going to get in. So I didn't close the window right away, and then it torrential poured. So,
Oh,
so
gosh.
the windowsill is completely soaked. And I thought, I'm sorry, Mr. Bird. I have to
Laudato
close this
si, but
window.
laudato no. Get the
I
bird out.
know, I know. I felt so bad. I felt bad, but I can't have the bird nest out there. It's very close. It's like right there. Like all he has to do is peck the screen and he's in my room,
He just wants to be
So
near you. You got such a
yeah,
good
and
spirit.
insistent. Totally insistent. Like even though I kind of shoot him away once, they were both back. No with reinforcements for the nest. I thought, "Oh my goodness." Yeah. So, I said, "Well, this is the season we're in.
It's the season, sister. If
Yeah.
you want your sweater weather, you just need to crank up that AC and just sit in front of it.
Oh,
That's all
yeah.
you're going to
Yeah, it's
get at this
fake.
point.
It's fake sweater weather. Fake sweater weather. But so rainy, lots of flooding here, and
Mm,
two mourning doves ready to give birth on
what a
my windowsill.
beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Beautiful. But
Well,
not as beautiful as our interview coming up.
oh my gosh, what a great. So it is summertime. Maybe people are traveling. If you get a chance to travel out east to Emmitsburg, Maryland, or near there, it's the 250th anniversary of our country. And so why not celebrate that by hanging out with the first American born saint, St. Elizabeth Ann Seton? It's not too far from Gettysburg. How about that?
I,
That sounds like
I,
a nice little promo
I,
for.
I think so.
Yeah.
The weather is getting better, and you'd be able to meet maybe Scott, the archivist, up there, and you could check out Lisa, who
Yes.
is our interviewee today. You can meet all the people, and if you actually came in September, I would be there.
There you go.
There you
Yes.
go. There you go.
Two, how many birds? That's a lot of birds to be killing right there. But Lisa is great. She has so many good stories. We don't want to keep you from that. It is powerful, I think, just to hear about our sisters in this country and even around the world who have done some pretty amazing things. And I think we talked about earlier, it's a little humbling, isn't it, to listen because you feel a little sheepish being like, "Ooh, we're in the same community and here I am going to retreats and conferences and talking
Yeah,
to people about
yeah.
Jesus." But they're out there, marching for civil rights and being on the AIDS wards early on when no one um, would touch it. And so it's pretty amazing.
It is really amazing. And I really appreciate the fidelity that she really expressed, not just in our sisters, but in the archives, in the shrine of Elizabeth Seton, to tell the whole story of the impact of this one woman in the life of the church, but in the life of the country as well. Had she not said yes, she not lived out her vocation, who knows, what would have happened. But she really opened doors for women in this country to find their vocation and to do amazing things in very, very difficult times. So, yeah, I really appreciate this interview, and I can't wait to see the exhibit.
Yeah. So if you haven't, check it out and let us know what you think. We'd love to hear from you, hear your prayer requests. Let us know if you have any ideas of people you want us to interview, topics you want us to cover. And you can reach out to us at companyofcharity@gmail.com. Enjoy the episode. Well, welcome back to the podcast, everybody. This is Sister Liz, and I'm here with a friend and fellow Mother Seton lover who's just a fabulous person, Lisa Donahue. Tell us a little bit, just for those who don't know you. I know you came on the podcast once before, but just a little recap of who you are, how you came to the shrine, and then we'll dive into the new exhibit over there.
Okay. Well, currently I am the research and exhibitions coordinator, which is a hodgepodge of different jobs. I do research and kind of help the staff out and other people out in the world, I guess, because people email me and ask me questions and do the research for them. I take care of our galleries and Elizabeth's things and rotate them and make sure they're in good shape and all of that. And I design the exhibits that help to design the special exhibits and come up with the ideas, and get those off the ground with the research. And in between all that, I still help out with tours and take care of relics and all kinds of things where I can around the shrine. And I've been here for 11 years, and it started out as a volunteer kind of basis with my daughter. Actually, I live here in Emmitsburg, and she wanted to do some volunteering, and then it was a part-time position, and then it became a full-time position, and now I'm doing all of this. So can't really say how I got here, but
God did it.
yeah, definitely. But I'm very fortunate, of course, to be able to be this close to a saint and research her and hold her things and tell her story. I mean, her story is so good, and yeah, I'm very blessed to be able to do that.
If people haven't been out in the last, say, 3 years, it's time to go visit the Seton Shrine again, because the new area, when everything was revamped and the entrance and everything, is just stunning. It's beautiful over there.
Yeah, it really is. And it is serving its purpose of to be able to tell her story more fully, but also with the museum being on the same level with the basilica, and you can kind of just tell her story and then walk right into this beautiful space that was the daughters originally their chapel that they now share with the world. It's just beautiful. So it's a very peaceful place.
That's great. Now talk about, okay, is it the official Do the Good is the official name of the exhibit, or tell us just a little intro of what
Okay.
this new exhibit is about.
The exhibit is called Do the Good, The Sisters Who Shaped America. So the Do the Good part kind of came a little bit later, but it's very fitting for what we want people to walk away with. And it's a quote from St. Vincent de Paul. He said, just like Mother Seton would always say, look up to the heavens, he would say, do the good, and then follow it with something. And this is basically do the good that lies before you. So it's just reminding people that we can all do a lot of good. It doesn't have to be huge things, it can be little things. And we can do that day to day. And collectively, it makes the world a better place. And that's kind of what the sisters and daughters have done for the United States. And that's how this exhibit kind of came about. You want me to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, tell us so from idea, conception to where we are now, what was that process?
So this was an exhibit that I wanted to do. When we opened the new galleries 3 years ago, we just did a very simple needlepoint exhibit, which was great. I mean, the needlepoint from Mother Seton's school and beyond, and beautiful pieces. And then, of course, last year we had to do the 50th anniversary, like for Mother Seton, to celebrate her 50th anniversary of canonization. But I had always wanted to kind of celebrate the work that the sisters and daughters have done for the United States, because I don't think people really realize it. I don't think they realize, I call them the it sisters of the 1800s. Like, they were the ones that like got everything going that we all Americans use daily, and that story had not been told. And so I really pushed for that to be the exhibit, and it kind of fits perfectly with the United States celebrating its 250th year. I mean, they were not here then. Elizabeth was. She was born right at the perfect time in 1774. But just the work that the sisters have done in like the last 220 years or so was a story that needed to be told. Now, I will say there for the sisters in the United States, sisters that took their vows here in the United States, between all of the congregations that are under the Federation today, there's been over 20,000 sisters. And all of them are impressive, and were stories that could be told. And I, of course, wanted to tell the whole story, and I've told like 1/100th of the story because there's so much to tell. And, where they just did what they needed to do. They did the good that lied before them, and that's the story that we wanted to kind of to share. So that's kind of how it came about. And then as I was doing the research and seeing so many good stories, but of course we wanted to represent the 10 congregations that are here in the United States. So then it became very selective of how are we going to tell this story in a timeline fashion and include all of the federations and get those important stories showing not only were they involved in schools and hospitals and orphanages, which we hear a lot, but they were also at all of the wars and all of the pandemics and all of the natural disasters, and kind of what that looked like.
What was one that you automatically were like, if this story is not in this exhibit, we're sunk? Like, this is a compelling one that you felt very strongly about at the beginning.
That is a really hard question because there's so many stories that really had to be told. I think a few big ones would have been that we kind of had to have was the cholera epidemic of the 1830s, because at that time there was also a lot of people that were against Catholics, that didn't like Catholics, and yet they're the sisters that are being called upon to go to Baltimore and Philadelphia, New York, St. Louis, New Orleans, to help people that are so sick that no one else wants to help. This was a time, and it wasn't unusual. This is the way the world had been. But sometimes when people were sick, they would just kill them. People in the world would just kill them because they were afraid of the sickness. And these sisters were like, no, we'll take care of them, and they would travel sometimes long distances to take care of people that were so sick and risking their own health, and there were sisters that died of cholera, and they were traveling long distances and really hard conditions, knowing that they were kind of coming into people that didn't like them for being Catholic, but they still were willing to treat them. I think that's an important story to tell. I think it was important to tell even the civil rights movement, the sisters that finally had a voice, meaning that at Mother Seton's time, it would have been really hard for them to speak out loud about what they felt about social issues like slavery and things like that. It would have been dangerous. But by the 1960s, we're finding that sisters finally have a voice that people are listening to. And that is really important. It's an important time for the sisters to come together with other congregations, other religious orders, and kind of take a stand on things that they think are injustices in the country. So I think that was important. And mixed in with that are little stories like, St. Vincent's in New York that was willing to treat HIV patients when no other hospital on the East Coast would. I think that fact that they were willing to risk their own lives and go into the unknown and take care of people that were sick is pretty impressive to me. But yeah, it's hard because every story is like, wow, that was really good. That was really good, and yeah. So I fell in love with them more, I guess I could say, as I'm reading more stories.
It's such a powerful set of pictures there on the display of the sister with Martin Luther King,
Mhm.
the long line of sisters who were marching and holding signs. Where exactly did you get that information, and who did you talk
Um,
to about that kind of stuff?
So the way I kind of attacked this was I first reached out to all of the archivists and asked what stories they wanted to be told. But I also just started kind of going through our history. And so when I got to the civil rights movement, these beautiful photos that you saw that came up from the March on Harlem in 1965. And the Daily News in New York actually owns those. And I was trying to really hard to get a hold of them. Not so much that we need their permission because so much time has passed, and because this is like a fair use exhibit, I didn't need their permission, but I wanted that high resolution because as you have to come to Emmitsburg and see it. It's just a beautiful, large photo. But it was their communications person at the Sisters of Charity of New York. I saw it on his Facebook page, and I was like, can I have a really good resolution of that image? And he was so welcoming and so willing to do that for us. So a lot of the images that we kind of found by going through the different congregations' social media posts, because they're so good about posting these stories and then asking for permission for those. The archivist here for the Daughters of Charity, the large photo of Sister Moynihan, who was the first nurse in Alabama, took lay sisters to World War One. That is a huge mural as well, and that photo is from 1918, I believe. And the archivist here um, took it to a place to have it enlarged for us. So we're very fortunate that we've had a lot of communication managers and archivists and stuff that really were willing to help us out to tell this story.
Talk about the sisters in World War I. That was new information to me. I've been in the community 18 years, and I still like these things. Just are amazing stories that
Yeah,
need to be told.
they are. And Sister Moynihan was the first nurse of Alabama. She was the first registered nurse, the first to get their license. And she took a group of lay sisters to Italy during World War One. I'm sorry, lay women with her to World War One. She taught them how to be nurses, and besides the work that they were doing there with the servicemen, they were also writing letters to family members. They were attending the funerals of the servicemen, and praying for them, and just did a lot of hard work. And then when they came home, there's another image of them coming off the ship with soldiers right at the end of the war, and they all were sick with the Spanish flu, which was the largest pandemic that has happened, the largest global pandemic, the biggest one here for the United States. Over 650,000 people died, and they kind of went right into helping with that. Um, we tell the story of Camp Zachary Taylor with Sister Josella Collins. She had asked, I think, 8 different congregations to send sisters to help 7,000 men that were sick with the Spanish flu. And so they were just working kind of day and night. The story that I also find very impressive is the story of Sister Hilary Ross, who was a daughter of charity in Carville. The daughters had gone there to take care of the people that were sent there. That was where people with leprosy were sent. And that was children to the elderly. And once you had leprosy, you were sent there, never to leave. And your families could not come visit you. So you were isolated. And the daughters went there to be with the patients, to kind of give them that dignity back, like treat them as people and human beings. And Sister Hilary Ross was a scientist, and she was making really good notes. She published over 40 papers of what was working, what wasn't working, how much was working, where she saw the results. And she's credited with helping to find the cure for leprosy, the protocol of meds for someone that has leprosy to cure them. And it's so like mind blowing to me that here's the sister that just took it upon herself to like keep these notes and figured it out. And so today there's like 100 to 200 people that may be diagnosed with it, but it's just a protocol of medications and you're fine, and it's so impressive.
It's really something. I learned quite a lot about it because we did a series some years ago about Carville and the writer who wrote King of the Armadillos, whose father was there as a patient, and just a it's so impressive to me because you don't think about it now. Right now, it's just a protocol. Same thing
Right.
with HIV and AIDS. Like
Mhm.
it was a death sentence
Right.
before. Those things were, you were ostracized, you were isolated. It was a huge stigma to have those diseases. And
Mhm.
not that it's not a big deal anymore necessarily. It's important when people come down but with it, but to know that there were sisters along the way at these different points
Mhm.
saying like, no, we need to be there. If there's someone suffering, we need to see if there we can figure out how to help.
Yeah, and I think the strength that sometimes took for the sisters to kind of go up against administrations and things like that. I know I was just recently told a story about the hospital in New York. They were treating AIDS patients, but it was at the very beginning. They didn't know what exactly it was. They just knew that people were getting really sick. And there was a doctor that was refusing to treat. And the sister that was running the hospital at the time was like, well, you took an oath, so you will treat and you will do this. And just the strength to do that. Eureka O'Reilly, I think about her. She was a sister from New York as well. That during the Civil War, there was a mob that was going to burn down the hospital, and she alone went out and met the mob and was like, "You're not going to do that here." And just just the strength. She also, funny story. She also that was the first year 1863 that we celebrated Thanksgiving as a nation, and so she spent like her entire budget on one Thanksgiving meal for the soldiers, and she got in a little bit of trouble for it but she said
Mm.
that it was worth it. Just their day to day like physical and mental work that they were doing. There's a sister from Cincinnati, Eugene Marie Carp. In the 1940s, the number one cause of death for babies was the Rh factor, the negative Rh factor, the blue baby syndrome. And she helped to figure out the cure for that. And today, there's no children that die from that because it's just a simple test that mothers take while they're pregnant. And, just smart women and hardworking women. And yet, their focus all the time is how can I make other people's lives better? Like, what is the problem here that I can help fix or I can help make better? It's the same attitude we see today, the constant like looking out for the other person. And so we were kind of hoping through this exhibit that that's what people would come away with, that we can all do a little something to make other people's lives better. Um, when Mother Seton first started, um, the Sisters of Charity, by the time she had passed away 11 years later, she had sent sisters to Philadelphia, New York, and Baltimore, and she had started a school and charity outreach. Bishop Carroll told her it would be 100 years before they were needed in hospitals. And it was about 5. So, you know, by 1850, they're in 98 different locations in the United States. So they were the ones that were being called upon every time there was an issue. The daughters here in New York and Cincinnati right after the Civil War when over 600,000 men had died, that left an awful lot of orphans. And they all started foundling hospitals where people could give up their babies. Essentially, it was a really hardship. Within 3 months, New York had 120 babies. And so, you have like three or four sisters that are taking care of 120 babies. So it
Oh
was like
my.
a day and night um, job. And we also wanted to talk about the natural disasters, because the sisters would lose things in those areas too. When we talk about the Chicago fire, the San Francisco earthquake, or the Johnstown flood, they lost part of their buildings too, their homes or their convents or part of their hospitals or their orphanages, and yet they were the ones that were the next day setting up makeshift hospitals and providing food and water and taking care of broken bones and burns and going about their life. I mean, the Johnstown flood, once the dam broke, within 3 minutes, 2,200 people died. And
Wow.
some of those sisters lost their entire families, their personal families, and yet they still were helping. We tell the story of Sister Raphael Kane, who fortunately grabbed the Imitation of Christ, which Mother Seton had written in that book. It was her copy. She references her baptism, and so years later, that'll actually help get her canonized. But Sister Raphael didn't know that. She grabbed that book and she grabbed the Eucharist, and her and 8 other sisters and 2 students went to the top floor of their convent. Well, the convent was wiped out from under them. They survived by holding onto a trellis. And then they're still like helping people the next day. Like, it's just what they did. And the ripple effects of the lives that they touched will never be able to be counted. And we would be a different country without them.
It's uh it's so humbling, isn't it, to
Mhm.
hear these stories, especially, for me as a member of the community, to just have so many who were dogged in their desire to serve and their heart for the dignity of each and every human person. And it certainly gives us some what would you say, reasons to pray for grace and
Mhm.
for the strength to meet the challenges of our own day. There's nothing on the exhibit that says like, yay feminism, like we're the first ones out there, but it's so true of these sisters at a time when women, were to be in the home and to be wives and mothers only, that there was no place for them in quote unquote the working world. Here are these sisters coming up with, helping to contribute at least to the foundation of so many institutions, and contributing to finding cures for diseases and responding. I mean, you think of the Red Cross. That's a group that goes out in
Mhm.
immediate disaster relief, and it was sisters who were doing that
Yeah, and
early on.
sometimes they could only send 2 or 3 sisters at a time. I mean, one of the first panels that we have, we talk about the first huge immigration wave, which happened between the 1830s and 1850s, and which really quadrupled the number of people that we had here in the United States. And so that, of course, led to needing hospitals and orphanages and schools. And it was the sisters that kind of stepped up and did that, but also in a very unique way, because a lot of Mother Seton sisters were immigrants themselves. And they had come from, France and Ireland and Germany, Switzerland, and I think even the Virgin Islands and San Domingo. I mean, these were women that knew what it was like to be an immigrant, to come into a new country, but also what it was like to be a Catholic immigrant. And so when they're starting these schools, they started a German school in Philadelphia where they're teaching in German, just to make the children feel more comfortable and more welcomed in the country. And so, very smart in thinking about how they can make the person that's before them feel better, and more comfortable. And they just did it every step of the way, And I think, we kind of, there's a story of the sisters when they first went to California, the daughters from here. And they had to take a carriage, and then they had to walk, and then they took a flatboat, and then a steamboat, and then all of these different things. And when they went to California, they went down around Panama. So at one point they're riding donkeys, and a sister gets taken off on a donkey to never be seen again, and people kind of laugh about it, but it's like, that's what the conditions were like. And their willingness to say, okay, we have to go 3,000 miles away, on the other side of the country. So we're going to have all these harsh conditions, but we're going to do it because we're needed there. And, it's just a lesson for all of us. Like, are we willing to do the hard stuff to help other people? And they just did it without thinking.
Yeah, it says in our constitutions that no type of distress should be foreign to us. And so that's a stitch it on a pillow, because that we need to live by that.
Right.
We need to not be afraid. And in vocation ministry, that's something I think about a lot. We need young ladies who want to come to work and come to serve, and not be scared if someone doesn't act right, smell right, talk right, look right. And we've got a lot of people out there in need. And
yeah,
so it's a tall order.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've seen that through some of the stories. One of Mother Seton's earlier sisters, who was very close to her, Sister Cecilia, ends up leaving after Mother Seton passes and becomes a cloistered Ursuline. And years later, she's writing to some of those earlier sisters, and she's like, it's not that I didn't agree with what the sisters did. I couldn't do what they did. When I see my fellow sisters just walk into these situations that were so horrendous, where people were dirty, or they smelled, or they were so sick, she's like, I stood back while they dove in. And I think that that's what we see with the sisters and daughters. Like, they are for the people, you know what I mean? And they don't hesitate. They don't stand in the doorway. They go in and they do what is necessary to be done to give this person life and dignity and feel human, and they just do it without thinking. And we've seen it in so many different scenarios, where they make people feel valued again, and yes, they're nursing them, or yes, they're teaching them, and all of those things, but they're also connecting to the human person, and that has changed lives. I've heard stories where people have said, my great grandfather was nursed or taught by a daughter, or during the Civil War, there was this one family that wrote a letter that was like, it changed him by being baptized and saved by a daughter of charity, that for generations it's made our family better. So we'll never be able to tell the ripple effects of when someone does something good for someone. We don't know how far that will go. Like, it could change them. Yeah.
Was there anything particularly surprising to you that you didn't know before, or a gem that came to light that you were like, oh my, this is powerful?
I don't, I've been around the daughters for a while, so I know what they're like. So I don't think there was anything that that truly surprised me. I think sometimes we just tell these stories without really thinking about these stories. And then when you really start thinking about, like, putting yourself in time and place of what that was like someone was talking to me, and we were talking about how hard it must have been for a mother superior to say, okay, you'll go to the cholera hospital, or you'll and pick those sisters that she knew she was probably putting in really dangerous situations, and the strength that it took to do that work, the physical strength that it took to do that work, just became more and more impressive the more that I read. And it makes me reflect, like, on myself, like, would I do that? Like, how am I willing to do that? To do what they did, what they've done, what they still do. And I think, it's been very thought provoking. It's a very thought provoking exhibit, I think, because I think a lot of people are coming away with that. Like, would I do that? Would I be willing to do that? And I mean, I think in some ways today we're fortunate that we don't have to do a lot of those situations. But then when it comes right down to it, would we do that? And I think that's
Mhm.
what's so impressive about them. And it's just there's so much more work they see that needs to be done. So they stretch out, and now they're doing missions all over the world, from the United States, that are dangerous situations, um, and they just keep doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's I think sometimes sisters get a lot of credit, in that sense, and rightly so. They're doing wonderful things, but it also, when it comes down to it, is the work of God.
Hmm.
And that piece, I think, makes it a little bit more understandable in the sense, because God's the one who's writing this story and giving
Hmm.
them strength, and he's the miracle worker of all of these efforts and blessing and giving strength to each and every one. And that's not some magic that only sisters have. It's something that's available to each and every one of us who follow the path of faith and are people of prayer and relying on him, and taking our um taking our next steps and guidance from the one who knows all of these things. And so it helps us to not be so afraid, I think.
Oh, I agree with that. And I mean, you're right. And we do see that with a lot of the sisters' stories. I mean, it starting with Elizabeth, just her willingness to follow God's will. Like, I don't know why you're making me do this or putting me through this, but I'm going to do it because it's what you're asking me to do. And I think you're right. I mean, they definitely have a connection to God, and they're looking to him first and praying all along the way. And Sister Matilda Karosky, I always say her name a little wrong, but she was one of the first, like, to take her vows as a daughter of charity. She was a sister of charity that became a daughter of charity in 1850. And she wrote a hospital book, Advices Concerning the Sick, a book for nurses, 20 years before Florence Nightingale. And in that, it is a lot of that. It's like, when a patient is anxious, sit and pray with them. When they're nervous, hold their hand. Um, and look at them as a child of God. And that was the same lessons they were getting during the Civil War. Take politics out of it. Look at the person in front of you, and care for them, because they are the face of Christ. And so you're right, they constantly have this with them, which I think does give them the strength to keep moving forward, and to do the good, to do what is right, and to do what God's asking them to do.
That's great. So, what's your final pitch for people? Why should they come and see this exhibit if they're within driving distance?
I think they should come and see it, because it is a 250th exhibit, but it is so different than what they're normally going to see with the stories of the Boston Tea Party and all of that, which are important. It's important to know those. But this is telling the story of our country through those hard times, through the illnesses and the wars and the natural disasters and the pandemics, all the hard stuff. And how can we get through the hard stuff? And so to hear these sisters' stories and the work that they did and the inspiring messages that they had and the love and the comfort that they had through all of this hard stuff, even the civil rights movement and HIV and all of this stuff that we've encountered together as a country, they helped us get through it. And so it's a good reminder of, that we can get through the tough stuff together. We can do it. And it takes all of us to kind of do the work together. And I think their stories are just so inspiring. And I think a lot of these stories we as Americans don't know. We may have heard the topic before or whatever, but we didn't really delve into what the conditions were like. And so to see these sisters that were willing to take a stand to protect lives and to help lives, not just Catholics, anyone that was before them, they helped. And I think it's a good way to remind us the strength that America has, and that the sisters and daughters were a huge part of that.
Yeah. But a shot in the arm for something that you said multiple times, and that is it's about doing the work together.
Mm-hmm.
And the strength in community, the strength of like-minded people who want to serve people in need, no matter their background, their political persuasions, rich or poor,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter. Like, if there's somebody in need, we want to help them. And that's a big part of it.
Yeah, I mean, we hear it all the time. We say we never know what someone's going through, but it is so true. We don't know, and we can't make assumptions of thinking someone's okay when maybe they're not. And all they need is someone just to say, how are you today, and really listen. So, and that's, I think, what the sisters have taught me. Being here, they're so good with visitors. They listen, and so yeah,
Mm,
and so I think people should come see it. I think it's a good reminder the strength that we have together.
amen to that. Well, Lisa, thank you so much for taking the time and sharing those stories. The Seton Shrine has its website, has its Instagram and Facebook. Like, definitely, guys, go check it out, because they're doing a lot of good and very active online. Just so you know, but learn a little bit more about these folks. So,
Okay.
well, God bless you,
Thank
and
you.
appreciate it.
Yeah, this was great. Thank you.